Hi everybody, welcome back to the Des Works channel, and we're back on with the Ducati 848 engine again. So today's video we are back on with putting the heads back together. So I'm going to be doing one of the heads. I'm going to show you how the head gets reassembled, then how we do the valve clearance check, and then make adjustments to the shim clearances so we've got those valve and shim clearances spot on. What I'll do in a second is I'll just take you through what I've done between the last video and this video, because as I said I was going to clean the heads up and just prep them ready to do this piece of work. But before we get into this video, please hit that subscribe button and notification bell, because it'd be really good to start growing the channel a bit quicker. Right, let me take you through where we're at the moment. Okay, so if you remember in the last video I completely stripped the engine back down to bare components. And since then all the valves have been cleaned up and have been lapped back in, so you can see there's a nice clean face there. And likewise with the exhaust valves, been cleaned up, been lapped in. The head is all been cleaned in a solvent cleaner. I've only done a light clean inside of the intake and exhaust ports with just a fabric wheel, just to get rid of the worst of the carbon. So although it's still dark and a little bit dirty, it's got rid of the excess build-up. There's new valve guide seals been inserted because I use quite a powerful solvent cleaner, so it destroys the integrity of the rubber in these. I mean, it probably would work, but it's better to be on the safe side because you don't know how the rubber in the seals has actually reacted to it. And then if I just show you, combustion area has all been cleaned up, and you can see where we've lapped the valves in. All we've got to do today is we've got to put all of this back into there so that the head is ready to have the valve shim clearances done, and then from that position we can hopefully put the correct shims in to give us the correct clearances. Okay, let's put this head back together then. Okay, so first things first, we've got to stick in our closing arms. Now if you remember, this has got a little collar inside it as well as the spring. Okay, so the first one to go in is going to be the easy one, so let me put the camera into a better position so you can see what we're doing. Two ways to put that in. Make sure you've got the threaded piece facing out. Next side. Again, look for the threaded side, non-threaded. That's got to go in that way. The other part I should mention while we've got it clear to see, I don't know if you can see this, but there's a little cast-in ledge here, and the spring, as you can see there, the tang that comes off of that needs to sit down behind that lid, that little lip, so that you've got the correct tension on the spring. All right, so to show that in its basic format, this little spring tang needs to come on this side for this arm and that side for that arm. All right, and make sure that the spring locates into the little hole on the rocker arm. Right, I do hold the keeper arm back with a screwdriver just to stop that, but as you can see sometimes it can ping up, so just be a bit careful with that. Okay, so that's all our closing arms in. The biggest issue is once you've got one of the sides arms in, is you need to keep the other arm back, because it just makes it really awkward to fit in the springs and that. But you can put the first two in as complete units, because you can put them in, squeeze them in and just push the rod in. What I do with the second one is I put the spring and the hat in first, push the rocker rod in so it's holding it, then just clip the closing arm in and then push it in, and then a little gentle tap with a plastic mallet to line it up and pop it in. Okay, next stage is we need just to quickly pop the valves in and then assemble the closing shims on the back of them. Intake closing shims are in. Just check they feel flush, and then you just see that I just use the force of the closing arm just to make sure that it sits correctly on the keepers that have been put in. Oh, and as per last video, these are new, so I've just chucked the new sets in each of the boxes that have got there. Okay, so closing rocker arms in, valves in, closing shims and their keepers in. You should just be able to feel the valve stem being slightly proud of the closing shim when that's installed. Right, let's put the opening shims in and then we'll put the opening arms in on top. Camshafts in now. S is for exhaust. Okay, so the head is fully assembled so that we can do clearance check. What I'm just doing is just checking that there's no massive resistance to the cams turning at the moment, because where we've lapped the valves in, it would have closed some of the clearances up, and you just want to make sure there's no massive binding before you sort of do this process. So that's nice and free to turn. Might not be able to turn these through the full range. Yeah, I can. Okay, so no, there's no grinding or catching on anything there. I put a very small dab of oil just again to make sure that we didn't get any damage caused if it was tight on anything. Okay, so let's do some clearances. Slightly different to the Desmo Quattro engine, but exactly the same as any other Testa Stretta engine from the earlier series. So we've got in the head here now exhaust cam, inlet cam, closing lobe, opening lobe, opening lobe, closing lobe, closing lobe, opening lobe, opening lobe, closing lobe. There's no need to do loaded and unloaded clearances in here because you can quite clearly get to the closing clearance. So your closing clearance is taken via this gap here, here, in here, and in here. And then the opening clearance is done by putting a feeler gauge in between here and here and here and here. Alright, so we're going to be taking 8 readings. Closing, opening, opening, closing, closing, opening, opening, closing. Alright, hope that makes sense. So what I'm going to do now, get a set of feeler gauges and let's find out where we are with a datum set of readings. Okay, valve adjustment program is up and running. What I've got here, 0.05, 0.1, 0.15, 0.2, just so I can do quick checks. And going to run these through, record the readings that we've got. Any gaps that are spot on we're going to leave. Anything that needs adjustment we'll have to take they apart and just measure the shims to work out what new ones we need. So let's do a quick set of datum readings then. Okay, quick set of datum valve clearance readings done. and unsurprisingly it's the closing measurements that have changed the most with the valves being lapped. Okay, so we're going to slightly open up the intake opener on the right hand side because it's a road spec engine. Likewise, we've got to open up both the exhaust closers, 0.05 on one and 0.1 on the other, and then we need to close the gaps up on the closers, so we've got to take 0.1 off of these two and then 0.1 and 0.15 off. So next thing I need to do then is I need to take this apart to measure up the shims where I've got to make adjustments. So let's quickly pop the cams out and then I will measure up the relative opening shims that I need to adjust, and then take it apart for the closing shims and then measure those up. Okay, let's do this. Okay, datum readings taken, so datum clearance readings taken, datum shims have been measured. It's now telling us which shims to get. So I've got the boxes of shims out. What I'm going to do now is match up the shims I need, drop them onto the little plastic lids in the correct positions, and then reassemble the heads. So let me just grab the correct size shims first. Okay, replacement shims found. Let's take those, put them back in the heads, and then we will recheck the readings to ensure that we're roughly there or thereabouts. Okay, head is back together. Again, just check that there's no massive resistance or grinding. This one's a little bit tighter now. Still a little bit loose, but hopefully the clearances are closed up right. Okay, so let's take a quick set of clearance checks again and see where we're at. Okay, everything has come out okay apart from the left intake closer is at 0.05. If it was a race spec engine, I'd leave that because I tend to do everything as 0.05 and 0.1 for the exhaust openers, but it's a road going engine and I just want to make sure that it sits in the right spec. So what I'm going to do is just open up the closer slightly on here. So we put in a 3.34 closer in there. I'm just going to take that back to a 3.3 and then recheck that. I'm not going to film it because you've seen that, so I'm just going to quickly whack this off and do that again and just check that that's correct. Okay, so change made now. So 0.15 doesn't go in, 0.1 does. So spot on. We've opened that out from the 0.05 that it had, so that's a good one. So there we have it. The head has been rebuilt with the shims correctly done. What I need to do now is I just need to pop this outside carrier back off because there's a little bit of sealant that needs to go under the very corners of this journal. That'll be then ready to put the new cam cover gasket in, and we can bolt up the top of the head. So everything is good. Let's just check. Everything rotates nicely. No binding anywhere. So that head is brilliant. Let's just make the correction on that piece there to show it's correct. So I've got 0.1 clearances on everything apart from the exhaust openers at 0.15 and then 0.1 on the exhaust closers. So that is in road trim standard. So very, very light smear of sealant on the end. Stage 1, 10 Newton meters. Stage 2, 22.5 Newton meters. Okay, so that's that all tightened up and cleaned. Just make sure that the gasket surface is nice and clean for where the cam cover gasket is going to go. So new cam cover, there's a new spark plug seal, just goes in there. Just make sure you force it right home. Then the new cover seal. No sealant needed. I know you see a lot of people gunk these up with free bond, but that's clean and dry, should seal on perfectly. So it's all been cleaned up. Oh, just before I seal that up, little squirt of oil. On the lobes. There we go. Okay, cam cover bolts got to be done up to 10 Newton meters, so let's just quickly tighten those up. What I've got to do now is put in the bolts that just seal off the rocker pin oil galleries. So let me just get them sorted. Okay, these go in with a small amount of locking compound. Okay, these are now done up to 20 Newton meters. My gimbal is running out of battery and keeps dying, so I'm just going to tighten these off camera just so that it doesn't fail mid filming. The horizontal head is all put back together and ready to be assembled on the engine when we do that. So just as a recap, we have taken it all apart, cleaned the head, lapped the valves, new valve seals, checked the clearances, adjusted the shims, rechecked the clearances, put the cams back in, cam journals tightened up in 2 stages, 10 Newton meters, 22.5 Newton meters. Camshaft cover has gone on, which is 10 Newton meters for these 4 bolts. Then we've put in the rocker pin oil gallery covers, which are done up to 20 Newton meters. So this is all good to go back on the engine when we rebuild the engine. Okay, so I'm going to call it a wrap there. Gimbal is completely died, so got a slightly different angle for my finishing. Hope you enjoyed that video and it got across the information on how to rebuild an 848 head. Okay, so before the next video, what I'll be doing is I'll just be finishing off the vertical head, so doing the same job on there, and I'm hoping that the next video will be reassembling the bottom end, so doing crankshaft clearances, gearbox clearances and the like, and then buttoning those cases up. If you enjoyed this video, please chuck us a like. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please hit that subscribe button and notification bell for more content, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Cheers then, bye.